So you think you're pretty good at building bases in the forests, hey? You've got really good tree bases, you've got really good base design, stuff like that. Well, today I'm going to show you a way that your players on your server can level up their tree bases. Hey everybody, welcome back to Rust Admin Academy, where I'm teaching you everything that you need to know about owning and operating a successful Rust server. On this channel, I do plugin reviews and tutorials, plus I want to give you all those tips and tricks that are going to help make your journey even more successful. So if you're brand new to the channel, consider subscribing so that you stay up to date on everything that we're working on, and of course so that you get notified every time I put out a new video. Alright, so first things first, I'm going to show you what this plugin does before I explain to you how it works. Let me just make my way over to a tree so I can give you an example. Oh, and by the way, what's this over there? Maybe that's going to be next week's video? I don't know, we'll see. Alright, so here we are over in the jungle biome. Let's see if we can find a tree that will prompt the player to claim it like you see on my screen right now. So let's hold E to claim this branch or claim this tree. Let's look up. And as soon as we claim this tree, look what happens. A base platform is spawned right before our very eyes. Now, what can we do with this base platform? Well, we could build stuff like this, or we could build something like this. And these are all up in a tree. But before I show you how everything works in game, let me show you how to get this plugin. And to nobody's surprise, TreeHouse is designed by AuthorVisEntities. It's available from the website gameforfreak.io, and I'll put a link to it in the video description down below. As you're going to see by looking at my screen right now, this is a premium plugin, $17.99 US. But be sure to use promo code SRTBULL at checkout to save yourself a couple of bucks if you're going to get this for the players on your server. So what does the plugin do? It turns jungle trees into buildable spots for your players, like I just showed you. So you know the jungle vine trees that we can climb up and do various different things in the trees? Well, it's those trees that we can specifically turn into treehouse bases. You walk up to a tree, you hold E to claim that tree as your own. Once the tree is claimed, it builds a platform for you and you can build a base on top of that platform. Once you've claimed that tree is now yours. It's going to remain yours through server restarts or whatever might happen. And the only time that tree becomes not yours anymore is if everything you've placed on that tree gets destroyed, decays, whatever. Once that happens, then this tree is up for grabs for yourself or somebody else to come along and claim that tree. There, of course, are permissions associated with the TreeHouse plugin. We're going to get into that in just a minute. And then at the end of the doc page, we get to see an example of what the configuration file looks like for the TreeHouse plugin. I won't get into too much detail on this one because I'm going to show you mine in a couple of minutes. Installation of the TreeHouse plugin is super easy, but just like every other plugin that we've ever installed, you're going to want to install it into the plugins folder inside your Oxide folder within your file manager for your server. So let's go into our Oxide folder, let's go into the plugins folder, and we would just simply drag and drop that file from our downloads folder on our local PC into this folder in our file manager. And if you have plugin watchers turned on within Oxide, then the plugin will automatically compile. Otherwise, you'll have to do an o.reload treehouse with capital T, capital H. Once you're done with all that, it's time to go in game and grant some permissions. So here's what I want to talk about when it comes to permissions. So when you're granting permissions, you can decide as the server owner whether you actually want to grant it to all of the players that join your server, or maybe just a specific group, let's say VIPs or people that have only joined your Discord. There's any number of different ways that you can set up your permissions for your server. The important thing is keeping track of all of that information. And for that type of thing, I like to use permissions managers. Now, as you might know, if you've been with me for any length of time, you know that I use two different permissions managers. One of them is actual admin menu from Chaos Code. The other one is just called permissions manager, and it's available from CodeFling, and that one is free. That's the one that we're going to use today. So if I want to be dealing with permissions just for the default group, so the default group is anybody and everybody that joins the server is a part of the default group. You don't have to do anything, they're just automatically added to that group. So in chat, as long as you're an admin of your server, you can do /perms space group and then the name of the group that you want to be granting permissions for. In this case, I'm going to show you how to grant permissions to the default group. So /perms group default. And in this specific case, we want to go into the TreeHouse plugin right here. And as you can see, it already says that I have this granted. If this was your first time installing this plugin on your server or the first time you're using Permissions Manager, this would say revoked, but it's because I've previously set this up and tested this all out so that I could show you guys this video. So you would just simply click on the granted button right here, and that would grant that group the permission to claim trees to use the TreeHouse plugin. I literally spoke to VisEntities while I was editing this video and suggested to him that it would be a good idea to have different levels of permissions based on different groups that we have in our server. So yeah, we can still have the default set of permissions, but I also said that we should have a VIP set of permissions or maybe a Discord set of permissions or whatever. So I don't know what he's going to come up with there, but he did take my advice, and maybe by the time you all see this plugin, those different permission groups are going to be available to you. I've done several videos on permissions, and it's something that a lot of people struggle with. And trust me when I say that using a permissions manager, whether it's paid or free, I don't care, but it will make your life so much easier. Gone are the days of manually entering permissions in server console. It's just not worth it. Use a permissions manager. All right, so let's talk about these tree houses. So first of all, you saw how I was able to claim a tree. I just walked up to it, and because I have the permission granted, I'm actually able to claim one of these trees, like so. Now, by default, the number of trees that a player can actually claim is set to 2. Now, for example reasons, I've set this to 0, which means it's unlimited. I can claim as many trees as I want. But just remember, it's set to a limit of 2 when you get this plugin right out of the bag. All right, so once we've claimed our tree, of course, you've seen before, it's going to place a platform up there for us. And once you're up on the platform, it's going to feel just like building a base. Now, once you have your platform started, you should be asking yourself, how far out can I be building this base? Are there limitations? Yeah, absolutely. There's limitations. There's limitations as to how wide you can go, and there's also limitations to how tall you can go. All of that is controllable in the configuration file. So let's just quickly go over that configuration file. So the percentage of trees that can be claimed within our server, by default, this is set to 35%. If you want every single available viney tree to be able to be claimable, then of course change this to 100%. You can adjust this to whatever you want it to be. Skip trees within this radius of a non-buildable area. So you don't want players to be able to exploit inside of a monument or something like that. So if a viney, jungly tree happens to spawn near a monument where you know for sure that it's inside of a non-buildable area, this plugin makes sure that they can't claim that tree. How long does it take to claim the tree? By default, this is set to 5 seconds. You can increase it, you can decrease it, you can do whatever you want. The starter platform vertical offset. So how far off of the ground do you want that platform to be automatically generated? Bear in mind that if you go too high, it's going to get pretty difficult for players to get up there. Do you want to disable stability inside the treehouse? This is kind of where things are going to get a little bit weird. So with stability turned off, I'm sure you know that bases act a little bit weird as you're destroying them, like in a raid situation. So by default, this is set to true. So we're turning stability off on these tree bases. So you're going to need to figure out what's going to work best for you and decide whether you want that on or off. And this is where we get to decide how big we're going to let these tree houses be built. By default, this is set to 20, which I've found is actually a pretty decent sized base. If you want to go bigger, great, go bigger. If you want to go smaller, fine, go smaller. You can do whatever is going to work best for your community. And this is where I talked about the maximum number of trees each individual player can claim. So like I said, this is default set to 2. I changed mine to 0, which means any player can claim as many trees as they can find. And then of course, there's another section here dealing with the deployables that are allowed on walls, and then the deployables that are allowed on ceilings. You can mix and match and change this up and decide what's going to work best for you, but this is where you would control all of those things. Once we're done making the changes to our config file, obviously save that file and reload the plugin so that the plugin will take effect from those changes. So you might be wondering, how do we get into our base? Well, there's a couple of different ways, and I'm sure there's ways that people are going to think of that I haven't thought of yet. So if you climb up the vine tree, you of course can follow it through this triangle and get up inside the base. What I like to do is put in a ladder hatch facing this direction away from the tree. If you go like this, I find it's almost impossible to get from the tree to the ladder. I'm not sure why. I thought I was going to be able to do it. Apparently not. So if I'm going to put in a triangle ladder hatch, it's going to be in this orientation right here. That way we can climb up the tree, open the door, and then slide over onto the ladder hatch. You decide what works best for you. And then of course, we've got some really important mechanics that we're going to need to talk about too. So obviously we know that we can cut these trees down in the game. Well, if we build our treehouse up there, we don't want this tree to be cut down like that. And of course, VisEntities thought of that too. Well, if we go up and we try to cut this tree down, you can see that it's just chewing the hell out of this chainsaw and not doing any damage to the tree. So we know we're safe there. I did also kind of want to show you guys, okay, so you can see that wireframe there. Can you guys see that wireframe on the screen right there? That is showing the limitations of the size of the base that we can build around this tree. I kind of want to try and show you what it looks like up top. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. So there you can see our framework there. That's showing the limitations of the base, how wide it can be, as well as how tall it can be. On this particular tree, we'd be able to build this up pretty damn tall. So there you can see the platform down at the bottom and how many walls I built up top. I don't know what that is, 12, maybe 14 walls up. That's a huge base. Okay, so I actually went to go place another wall there and realized that it wasn't limiting how tall I could go. So I did keep going, and that's got to be, I don't know, just about 20 walls tall. That's too tall. I thought the limitation would have prevented us from building higher. Okay, so there we go. We're at the max height there. I don't think that VisEntities has intended it to be like that, because I think everybody would agree that that's just too tall. I'm not sure. I'll touch base with VisEntities and see if that was intentional or not. I thought there was a cap as to how tall you could build your base. Maybe something has changed, I'm not sure. Once your base is completed, you can use all of the same functionality of whatever you've got on your server. If you've got B grade or building grades, whatever it happens to be, we could then upgrade our base. You still have to put a TC in it, obviously, so I've got mine behind these walls here, right up against that tree. Something that I do want you to remember is that this tree that we have our treehouse built around right now is climbable, and even people that don't have build priv are going to be able to climb that tree. So keep that in mind and prepare accordingly. Now, one thing that I wanted to see how things were going to go, and I actually waited to test this, I don't know what this is going to look like, is what does it look like when we raid from the bottom? Because chances are pretty good that most people are going to try and raid these from the bottom. All right, so I just finished crafting 1000 C4. Sure you did. Now let's see what kind of damage we can do on this base. All right, so as I expected, because we have no stability set up on these treehouse bases, you're gonna get weird stuff like this happening. So like we could go through and we could literally probably take down all of the triangles around the base of this tree. And while you might expect that base to fall apart at that point, it's not going to, because stability has been turned off just for this tree. So it is going to change how your players are building bases on your server, particularly when they're building a treehouse base. But at the end of the day, I think they're really going to enjoy it. So make sure you go check it out and see if this is going to work well for your community. So I think I've covered all of the important details of this plugin. You should check it out and see if the players in your community might be interested in building treehouse bases. Let me know what you guys all think of the treehouse plugin down in the comment section down below. If you found any value out of this video whatsoever, do me a huge favor and hit that thumbs up. I'm doing battle against YouTube right now, and I'm just trying to get the channel on their radar so that they start putting me in front of other people. Every time you leave a like or a comment in the comment section down below, you're helping me with that mission. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next week.